Hello everybody, here today to show you guys how to create your DSGN RD file. Those of us at FDOT know that's just essentially our 2D planimetrics file. I am in my ALGN RDO1 file, so the file that my alignment and profile are in, and I'm going to use the FDOT create file to create my DSGN RDO1. So we're going to choose roadway as our discipline. We're going to do roadway design files and our DSGN file. You want to make sure that it's showing the right file here, that it's going to the correct place, and you want to set the county so that it sets the coordinate system. So I am going to set Indian River here, and we're going to create open file. Now that I have the file created, I can hit close. And I want to start attaching some of the things that I need in this file. I'm going to grab a few of my model files. Basically all the model files that I think I'm going to need to create 2D planimetrics for. So the whole idea behind what we're doing here is that I want to be able to make a change in my model file and have it properly reflected in my design file, my 2D design file. So I want the model to drive everything that I'm doing. So we can do a little bit of cleanup in here. We can turn off a lot of these corridor and template levels. Okay. So you can see we've got some things set up here. Okay. Another thing I like to do is just take these model files and adjust the colors on them to like 65, so they just are a little bit gray in the background. One thing I'd like to do that I typically do in my pavement model file is have the pavement lines in here. Now this one's pretty simple, what we've done so far. We have a 22-foot median. We know what our pavement width is. So I haven't really done that in this pavement file, as this was kind of an example. But part of this project has a transition in it where we go from a certain width of median to another width, and so the inside edge of pavement and the outside edge of pavement go through a transition piece, and I like having that in my pavement model file. So what we'll do is we'll go draw that in the pavement model file and then come back to the DSGN so that we have those in case we ever need to make a change to the pavement. We would do that in the model file first and have that reflected here. Okay, so here we are in the pavement model file, and we are going to just be dealing within the limits of where we've modeled so far. So we've set up these lines in this file here. So that's how we know how far our pavement corridor goes. And what I want to do is start setting up some construction lines for my pavement. So I usually put this on white dash. The edge of pavement's white, so that makes sense, but you can kind of choose what makes sense for you. So I want to do a single offset partial from center line. And my median's 22, so the offset to my PGL is 11. I'm just going to run this all the way through to here. And I'm going to do yes on the mirror because I want a mirror. Just going to make sure that this is also snapped to here. I'm not seeing any rule on that, so I'm just making sure that this also has a rule. So like when we created this, it created a rule to that endpoint and a rule to that endpoint. Okay. Now I know that I have a 29-foot pavement width, so I'm going to do single offset entire element. 29 feet. Not going to mirror that one. Alright, so now I have my pavement outline here. Like I said before, you might be building this pavement outline essentially out of multiple lines. So maybe if I get to 178, for example, and we start transitioning our pavement out to a 40-foot median, you would figure out your limits and you would have your 40-foot median stuff drawn over here, your pavement outline, and you would simply connect the dots with your complex element lines, your complex lines here. And if you wanted to, you could complex that whole thing together to create one long line. But for now, we'll just keep it simple, and we'll head back to the DSGN. All right, now we're back in the DSGN, and we can see that we have our pavement outline sitting out here. So what I can do is we'll start with the median, and I've got some pavement asphalt EOP already sitting in here, so I can just go and match that so that I can get the correct feature drawing here. And we're just going to do a single offset partial. And I'm going to go from, I'm just going to single offset partial 0 from here. We're going to go from here all the way up to where this median nose starts. So I could either snap to the end of this arc, or I can snap to here, which I'm going to choose. And I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. Snap. Do that. Okay. Now we're going to do the median on the other side. So we have this time we have a left turn lane here. So on the right side here, I can just, whoops, actually want to continue what I was doing there and snap to that line all the way to the end. And what I can do here is I've already kind of gotten this built out in here, so I just need to kind of finish building this edge of pavement. And then we can do some single offset entire elements from these lines that are in the median file. And I want to kind of set these back as at a -1 so that I can see that I've drawn over the top. And just for this case here, I'm going to turn off the ALGN so I can see that line underneath there and make sure that I'm drawn on top of that. So I'm just going to do single offset entire element that guy. Get all these noses. And while I'm at it, I can come over here to this side street, grab this edge of pavement, grab this edge of pavement, grab this tie down line. Okay. So as you can see, we're starting to build this asphalt here, all based on lines that are in our model files. So if our model file changes, you can go make a change, open up the DSGN, and everything will update based on what's in the model. So I'm going to snap to the end of this. Do the same thing on this side, snap into my construction lines that signify the end of that return. Snap. And on this side, I'm just going to go straight through this little white line. This little white line has to be here because of the civil cell that I used to create this. But I don't really need to break this line just for that little piece, so I'm just going to do that all the way through. Okay. Now let's do our curb face. See if I can grab a curb face in here, make sure I'm on, so I'm on curb F, so I'm going to do the outside curb. I know there are some civil cells available that will do this for you, but I find this to be pretty quick. So I'm going to do 1.5 for my curb face, type F. And you can see I can single offset entire element off of this pavement asphalt line that I've created, because it's exactly the length that I need it. So this one is going to be a little bit different because I want to come up to here, actually up to here, so that I have this little transition where that, and then to where that curb face needs to stop. So single offset partial and 1.5. Whoops, mistyped. There we go. And I'm going to bring it all the way up to this green line, oh, to this, where that transition piece comes in, because you'll see next, we're going to do a single offset entire element of that. All right, so we've got that drawn. All right, now we got that F curve drawn. Now let's finish up the rest of this F curve that we need. So I'm going to come into these curb ramps and single offset entire element here. And this piece of, this is F curve, but this is also going to be F curve here because we want to make sure that we're counting this whole length as F curve. So same thing over here. You can see it's pretty easy, just single offset entire element, and you're done. So while we're at that, we can come down here and do the same thing with all of these curb ramps. And I'll just draw one to connect there. And we need that piece. So let's finish this curb ramp up. So I'm going to do it off of here. And we'll just start down here where it is. So all the way to the end. And then up and snap to here. Then we'll just connect these two flares. And finish it off. Alright. So same thing over here. I'm just kind of doing it backwards this time, connecting the, because it doesn't really matter which one of these I snap to, whether it's the line in the model file or the line that we're doing a single offset partial from, because they essentially have the same rules to them. If one moves, the other is going to move. We can come in here. Okay, so there's all our F curb. Pretty good. Now let's go ahead and do our E curb in the median, just to finish up the curb face. Sometimes you click on here and it doesn't take it. So we're 1.5 again. And on this one here, we're just going to have to trim extend these together. Like that. Okay. Now we can do the back of curb. Curb back. I'm just going to start with the median here. So this is E curb, so it's 9 inches, 0.75. Trim and extend these together. Okay. And let's get the rest of the curb back. So this time we're doing F curbs. We're going to do 6 inches. We can do these lines first, and then do these 0 offsets. Another option I've done before in here as well is to draw a 2D civil cell over the top of this 3D civil cell that's sitting out there using the same bounding element. So I would just use this same edge of pavement in this same center line, and it would draw that over the top. Kind of up to you how you want to handle that, but I feel like it's just quicker for me to just do a bunch of single offsets real quick here. And I know sometimes this might feel a little bit redundant as far as like, well, I've already drawn it in one file. Why do I have to draw it again? Couldn't I just reference it together? I've found that it's ideal to have a 2D planimetric file that you can just send out to people. Um, if you're watching these videos, you're probably pretty well versed in modeling and dealing with 3D elements and all of that, but we have subs, we all have subs out there, and others that are not as familiar with that and still just request a 2D file. They don't want to deal with all the model files and all that. So, if I have to send them 10 different model files to make up the DSGN, that's not very ideal for them. They don't want to have to attach all that. They want it in one file that they can just have. So that's why building this DSGN file is helpful for us, because we can have one file that we attach to our plans, but also one file to be able to send to others to be able to use. So I'll just continue finishing up all of these curb lines. And okay, oh, this one. Sometimes I miss these little stubs there. Actually, for this one, I don't need to do that. I could single offset. It kind of depends. Another option here. What I'm considering doing is just I could do single offset entire element 0.5 here, or I could do single offset partial all the way up to here and use a 2-foot offset. So let's just do that, just to change it up a little bit. So again, I'm picking this EOPA here, or I could right click and grab the construction line that's in the model. It doesn't really matter because this EOPA is following that other one. So whichever one I use is going to be fine for what I'm trying to do here. So I'm just going to grab that, and I'm going to use 2 because that's the entire width of our curb. And we'll come all the way to here. Do the same thing on the other side. Through to here. All right, let's get these little guys. Okay, so we're getting pretty close here to what we want. We can start moving on to some sidewalk here. So I know I have 6-foot sidewalk at the back of curb. So I'm just going to single offset this 6, and we'll do 6. So up here, if I do 6 here, it's going to go too far. So that might have been, you got to kind of think about as you're doing your offsets here. So my sidewalk comes to here, but this face of curb extended a little bit beyond that. So that's good. I want to make sure that line does extend there so I don't have some sort of interval where I'm extending the length of the line past its parent line. So now that we have this line here, we should be fine. So we can do a single offset partial of 6 feet. Make sure we're on the right side. And come all the way up, and you can either snap to this or snap to this. Doesn't really matter because this line is ruled to the intersection of these lines anyway, so it's essentially the same thing. Draw my curb between. Alright, so we've got that. Now we can fill in the rest. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling in the rest of this DSGN file. We'll come back when I'm done, and I can show you how some of these offsets can change. So how I can change the offset of this edge of pavement and how that would affect what's happening out here. Okay, now I'm back here done drawing all these elements. So you can see I've filled in all the curb ramps and the the line where we're going to have our detectable warnings. One thing I wanted to mention here is I've had to create a DSGN RDO2, and I'll put an underscore shading after that in the file name, and that could have anything in that, like the pattern for your detectable warnings, or showing a shading here where we're going to have 6-inch concrete for on our return. I've done riprap in there, ditch pavement, any of those things, and then once you have that, you can go ahead in your text file or in your PlanRD drawing models, however you're deciding to do that, and create legends for that shading. And it's just easier to have stuff like hatching and shading in a separate file from all of your line work. It's nice to be able to separate it, but also when you send the DSGN out, people might not necessarily need all of that shading and stuff. They just want basic line work. So just something to think about as we move forward. So I want to show how this is obviously updates, and some of this stuff might not behave exactly properly. So what I should have done when I created this is done this arc off of the dashed line that was in the pavement file, not in this dashed line that I created while I was doing that. So that would allow us to, if I had done that, we could change the offset of this, and this whole intersection would shift. So the way I would have to do it now is changing the pavement. I could also go in here and change this construction line's white here, or whatever line this is based off of in there. I think it's based off a longer line. And I could change its, so you can look at a line and you can go to the rules and you can do replace reference. I could replace its current reference with a reference for this outside edge of pavement line that we created. So that's just another way you could get it to work. And now we can move over to that side street model file, and I can show you how to do that. Okay, so here I am in the model file for the Rocket side street, and we found the line here. Construction line 6, that's 40-foot offset from the center line. And I want to change that to a 0-foot offset from my pavement line. Now, what's going to happen here is if I use this replace reference, it's going to make this line 40-foot offset from my outside edge pavement. And we're going to have to go through a few steps here to get everything back in place, because it's going to get real angry that we did this. So hold on. All right, now you can see it's 40-foot offset, but we broke some stuff. And when you change the reference, this line was previously the single offset entire element from its previous reference, so it's gone ahead and done that. Even though it looks like it still has these snaps sitting here, it's not. It did a single offset entire element from our pavement line, so we have to go ahead and fix that. And you can't just go and snap to this again. What we have to do is kind of break the snaps. So I'm going to grab the end station here and move it. And I've done this a couple times prior to recording this to try and figure out what's happening. And it looks like when I move this, it flips the direction of the line for some reason. So don't be freaked out about it. If you are trying this, just keep working on it. So just pay attention to where your start and stops are. So see how it flipped this line? So now the end is here and the start is here. So now we can just pull this start back here. And I still want to make sure I'm not snapping to anything, so it's resetting that snap basically. So we're still going to have some broken stuff here when this reloads. So it's recalculating a lot of things. I've got civil cells and all sorts of stuff going on in there. So now you can see we're pretty much back here. Nothing looking too terrible. I guess if we look up here, we're still a little messed up. So now I'm gonna fix the snaps. So we got one snapped. Fix this snap. And now we'll fix the offset. Now that should bring it back up here and fix that terrain that's messed up. There we go. So it's back. Now that line is based off of the south side edge of pavement. Pretty simple. So what we would probably need to do here for this is to do that as well. But what I really want to demonstrate is when you change something, as long as you've set everything up properly, it should work. So let's just look at this right side. Let's say, I don't know, we went to 30. Let's just change it out to like 35 feet of pavement for no reason at all. Just to get to see how this line pushes out. So what we're going to do is we'll go into our pavement model and push this line out and see what that does. All right, so we're back in the pavement model. I'm going to grab my outside edge of pavement here, and we're doing 12, 12, and 7. So let's just make it something that makes sense. So let's say we'll add another lane. So we'll go 36 feet plus 7 is 43. So now we've got 3 12-foot lanes and a 7-foot buffered bike lane. Okay, so now we've done that. What we'd have to do is obviously update our template here, but we're not worried about that right now. We're kind of worried to make sure that our DSGN is updating based on what we've done here. So to get that to work, I still need to go back into this rocket and get that updated based on this shift. So you can see now that we're back in this file, the side street has shifted out because all the lines it's based on are shifted out. So all of our 2D lines that are in here representing 3D things are all shifted out as well, so that when we go into our DSGN, even though our model's not showing it right now, our 2D will be properly represented. Alright, so we're back in here, and I don't know if this is a display bug or not, but usually when you come back in, it looks like it's not right. But if I zoom out one and back in, now see how it's shifted down to give us this 36-foot lane here, or 32 12s, 3 12s, and a 7-foot buffered. So you can see how our 2D line work followed what we changed in our model file. And it really didn't take that long to get it all set up. It's kind of something I've found that's really helpful, and I hope that you guys find this helpful too. And that'll be the end of this video, and hopefully I will have a few more videos coming out here shortly. Thanks.